You've been covering the Home Ministry for a long time. There is, as far as India is concerned, the United States is concerned, a lot of evidence that implicates Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi, and yet the Pakistani court cited lack of evidence. What can you tell us about what there is in hand?
Well, very briefly, Nidhi, if you look at the evidence that was there, according to India's claims and according to what has been shared with us, the dossiers that had gone, there were evidence that had come from David Coleman Headley separately talking about Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi. There was evidence that was given to us by Abu Jindal, the man, the only Indian who was there in the control room when the attack was going on in the Karachi control room. And also there was evidence that was given by Ajmal Kasab. All of them, if you look at the big picture, all of them had one thing to say, that Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi had not only planned but also helped in execution. David Coleman Headley goes on to say that it was he, Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi, that had sent him here to Recce, Bombay, and he went back and met Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi and gave up the evidence to him. Same thing was told by Abu Jindal about how the execution was done. Same by Ajmal Kasab. Now, what India today is saying and what the Home Minister today said, that it's extremely unfortunate that this has happened. And the slow trial of the case has been a very contentious issue, in fact a hurdle in the Indo-Pakistan relationships of, in the past. What can India do now? Well, they are saying that they're going to put pressure on Pakistan. Will that work? Will that not work? It's not yet clear. But what people are telling us out here is clearly the evidence that had been given to Pakistan has not been put to good use. That was not, perhaps presented before the court with all its force and all its ramifications.
Right.
Nidhi.
Well, I think, Sudhi, that is the key, that the poor way in this entire case was prosecuted, and the slow pace of this trial has been a major bone of contention between the two countries. I think officials here closely watching to see how Pakistan handles this from here in terms of an appeal, in terms of ensuring that the bail is cancelled, because otherwise you could see a further huge setback to the India-Pakistan relationship, which is already in deep trouble. Saurabh Gupta is joining us tonight from Mumbai, from the Leopold Cafe, in fact, which was the site of the attacks as well on 26/11. And Saurabh, we've also seen, a huge outpouring of solidarity from Indians over the last 2 days, standing by, people in Pakistan after those deadly attacks in Peshawar. I'm sure they still continue to do so, but I suspect that many Mumbaikars tonight would have a heavy heart.
Well, for Mumbai, the theme has always been to try and move on from what happened and take the fight against terror to an extent that Mumbai doesn't ever have to see something like what happened on 26/11. Now, a little after 9 p.m. on 26th November 2008, bullets were sprayed into Leopold Cafe right behind me. The 10 terrorists who came to India landed right here, and it all took place in front of this man here, Shivaji Nagre, who runs a stall right outside Leopold Cafe. आप कह रहे थे कि आतंकवाद के खिलाफ जो लड़ाई है वो सब दोनों देश को मिलके लड़ना है, ये आप कह रहे थे मुझे तो
बरोबर है। लेकिन जो आतंकवाद जो करता है, आतंकवाद को जो कोई जामीन पे छोड़ देता है, तो हमारा देश हो या पाकिस्तान हो या हिंदुस्तान हो, ये आतंकवाद के सामने कैसा लड़ाई लड़ेंगे? ये जो आतंकवाद करते हैं, आतंकवाद कोई भी हो, उसको बाहर निकालना नहीं चाहिए, उसको सजा ही देना चाहिए। ये बरोबर नहीं है
और ये दोनों देश को एक साथ करना चाहिए,
ये करना चाहिए, दोनों मिला के करना चाहिए। इसमें पॉलिटिकल यूज नहीं होना चाहिए। ये तो आतंकवाद के सामने पाकिस्तान, हिंदुस्तान और कोई देश हो, ये सब मिला के उनके सामना लड़ाई लड़ना चाहिए, उसको बाहर नहीं निकलना चाहिए। ये हमारी राय है।
और अगर ऐसे कुछ होता है जैसे जामीन पे छोड़ देता है, तो क्या लगता है आपको?
नहीं, वो तो फिर और डर पैदा होता है कि और उससे भी ज्यादा कुछ और कर सकता है, क्योंकि जो एक जो किया है वो नॉर्मल किया है, वो जामीन से बाहर आता है, तो उससे भी डबल कर सकता है, तो पब्लिक के मन के अंदर बहुत बड़ा डर पैदा हो जाएगा।
Well, that's the underlying theme in Mumbai, that while they try and move on from what happened, they say that incidents like these take them back to that, moment of fear when the entire city was engulfed by fire from the guns of these terrorists. And they say, Mumbaikars will tell you that it's time we took on the battle against terrorists together. Whether it's India, whether it's Pakistan, we've seen the kind of mayhem they can cause, whether it's in a school in Peshawar or whether it's at a cafe in Mumbai. The theme that everybody wants here to be followed is that let's take on the terrorists together, let's fight this menace together.
All right, Saurabh, thanks very much for giving us a sense of what Mumbai is feeling about this tonight. And the question really is how the Pakistani state is going to choose to respond to all of this. And that at the end of the day is at the crux of this entire story. But is there a double game that's being played here? On one hand, is Pakistan going to pursue the Taliban? And on the other, are we going to see a different policy towards the Lashkar-e-Taiba? Shobha Day is joining us tonight from Mumbai on that debate. Also with us, Bhisham Mansukhani, one of the survivors of the 26/11 attacks, who was in the Taj Hotel that night when the firing took place. Mr. Soli Sarabji, the former Attorney General of India, also with us this evening. Bhisham, let me ask you first. I was asking Saurabh, my colleague, the same question just now, that so many Indians have stood by Pakistan over the last 2 days, and we still do in the wake of those horrific attacks in Peshawar. And yet today, I'm sure you feel a kick in your stomach when you hear that the man who was handling all of them while these attacks were going on, the main handler, Mr. Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi, that he's going to get bail, that he'll be out, he'll be a free man.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that less than 48 hours after the horrific attack in Peshawar, instead of reflecting and mourning the dead of that awful attack, we're back to lamenting just how hypocritical Pakistan is in terms of its so-called war on terror. Let's be clear, Pakistan, and I say this even after the Peshawar attack, Pakistan is not a victim of terrorism. Pakistan is a victim of its own policy of fostering terrorism. There is enough evidence, as your colleague mentioned in his report, that Lakhvi was in the Karachi control room along with Abu Jandal and Hafiz Saeed commandeering the attack. There is no doubt about that. But the fact is, LET constitutes a helpful terrorist, not the rogue terrorist that carried out the attacks in Peshawar. So we hold out this illusion of justice and the shock that Lakhvi was going to go on bail. I think that was fairly predictable. His colleague Hafiz Saeed is out on the streets in Pakistan, hailed as a freedom fighter. There was no way that the judiciary was going to convict him. I had no illusions about this. I don't think even hanging Kasab brought us justice. It's not just the Pakistani government that has the lack of conviction of bringing Hafiz Saeed and Lakhvi to justice. It's our own government. Our MEA spokesperson very finely waxed eloquence about how he was shocked at the Lakhvi's bail. The fact is, this bail was already coming. The question we need to ask ourselves is, as a patient and decent society that has been horrendously traumatized by the attack that happened 6 years ago, if our patience and negotiation 6 years later leads to the bail for Lakhvi, and I believe other 6 are also going to apply for bail in the next few days, where does patience and restraint draw the line, and where do we get to the point where our fight for justice is taken to another level?
Bhisham, I completely understand your sentiment tonight, because you saw the horror that unfolded that night yourself, and I can see that you're emotional about it and angry about it, and I don't blame you for that at all. I just want to go across to our guests in Pakistan tonight. Air Vice Marshal Shehzad Chaudhry is back with us this evening. Lieutenant General Talat Masood, the former Defence Secretary of Pakistan, also with us. Shehzad Chaudhry Sahab, you know, I'm sure you can understand the anguish here in India, because of course it is a court that has said that there is lack of evidence and therefore bail should be given. But you know, the feeling here is that it has been argued so poorly, that the prosecution has argued this case so poorly. There's been an overwhelming mountain of evidence against Zaki-Ur-Rehman Lakhvi, and yet him going out on bail is just so cruel tonight, just 2 days after what's happened in Peshawar.
Yes, Nidhi, I think the people in Pakistan are equally surprised and disappointed with the fact that such a occurrence happened in Pakistan, because of the simple reason that even if there wasn't any significant progress in the trial going on for the Mumbai 7, there was a reason enough for the trial to be continued. Pakistan owed it to itself more than anybody else to make sure that the perpetrators, if at all were convicted, needed to be brought to justice, and that is a process that was going on. Now, unfortunately, we can go back in history, in time, and say why both sides could not do things better in terms of coordination or providing evidence to each other. But I think there's a brighter side to the whole thing as well. Since this happened, there's been an equal amount of sentiment within Pakistan suggesting that, well, one, it is not good at all. Number two, even if it was being tried in camera, and we were not aware of how the trial was being progressed, or even if the bail application was being processed. Certainly this was no time to get into this kind of a thing when the nation is just sort of recovering from a very horrendous act in Peshawar. Thirdly, however, there is a sentiment again that the government should take this immediately to the trial, to the higher court, and make sure that this bail application is rejected on the basis of the fact that yet a lot has yet to be proven, whether in terms of convicting Mr. Lakhvi and his accomplices, or even freeing them from the court. So I think a lot is left to be done as yet before Pakistan can reach that stage, and I think we owe it to India. We owe it to India, who's a neighbor and with whom we suggest and we expect that we need to work together to try and contain this menace of terrorism, not only impacting Pakistan but in India in different ways. And I think it's a transnational sort of a phenomenon. I think that's what we need to look at, and that's what we need to focus on.
It's
easy to blame each other on a dual game.
It's very reassuring to hear those words, Shehzad Saab, because, you know, like you, there are many Pakistanis tonight, citizens, others, who are online, who are tweeting in solidarity with India today, who are appalled at what has happened today and believe that this, you know, shouldn't have happened. So it is reassuring to hear those words from you as well. I'll take that to Shobha Day. Shobha, you know, in that sense, hopefully all hope is not lost, but as a friend of mine was just saying, you know, there are Pakistanis like Shehzad Chaudhry who was saying that, well, this shouldn't have happened. But, you know, for the people who matter in Pakistan, perhaps an allusion to the army, you know, it doesn't matter. Maybe they have a different way of looking at this. Maybe there's a different policy. Do you still see hope, or are you going to be cynical about this today?
There's no room for cynicism, Nidhi, but a few home truths have to be pointed out. It was very reassuring to hear a very sane and sober voice from across the border assessing the situation and understanding the implications of what this bail means, not just to India but to Pakistan as well, particularly at a time when our Prime Minister had reached out spontaneously, instantly, as had all the citizens, right-thinking citizens of India, with the Peshawar massacre, the tragedy. And our students had expressed that kind of solidarity with the students who had sacrificed their lives, lost their lives across the border. There was a feeling, I mean, both the nations were in mourning. At a time like this, the bail application seems provocative and perverse. Was I shocked? No, I wasn't shocked at all, because clearly the will is not there. They have never taken this trial seriously. We don't know how it's been conducted. If they were serious about it at all, even now, they can talk about a special court, carry out whatever remains of this mockery of a trial and speed it up so that the world can see that they are taking it seriously. Bombay is still reeling from what happened 6 years ago. It's not even a month from the 6th anniversary of what Bombay endured. It was a hit not just to Bombay and Mumbai, but to the very heart of India. Mumbai, as a symbol of all that represents progress in India, of commercial interest in India, was hurt, badly hurt. I don't think we have still recovered from it. I don't think we ever will. Given the sentiments, given the proximity to that awful anniversary, that this should happen is indeed the height of not just a callousness, but I am appalled. Now, there are only two ways to deal with this. We must ask stronger questions. It's not enough for someone from our side, from the MEA, to talk about, oh, we are very disturbed by this. What are we going to do about it? What kind of answers do we want from the world community? There was someone earlier, a defense analyst from our side, who said the world has to choose here and now. They're either with us on this or they're against us. I mean, it's as simple as that.
But, okay, you're asking for stronger and tougher questions from the Indian government, which is something that Bhisham also expressed. And Siddharth Nath Singh, you're a senior leader of the BJP tonight. What more can the government do at this point, you know, practically?
Well, the government, you know, actually, Nidhi, we need to look at how the government's continuity towards Pakistan needs to be maintained. We have seen, without criticizing, we have seen that in the past, you know, there has been an approach which is slightly different. We need to have a policy that the talks and terror cannot go, and that's one principal stand we need to maintain. But at the same time, when the humanitarian issues come, like what we saw 48 hours back in Peshawar, the entire India stood up, the Prime Minister reached out. Not only that, when the floods had were there in Srinagar, so for the POK, the Prime Minister reached out to Pakistan and said, if you need any help from India, we are ready to do that. But that doesn't mean that India is ready to exchange or join, shake hands with them, because the policy will remain that talks and terror cannot go hand in hand. So therefore, it is important that the Pakistan needs to be sincere, which is a very difficult thing to ask from Pakistan, that you need to be sincere when you say that your soil is not going to be allowed for any terrorist activity, and it cannot be, and certainly it cannot be that you have a policy for Taliban and you have a policy for Lakhvi or Hafiz Saeed. These two things will not go, and it will not, the deficit that exists between India and Pakistan at the government level and to the people level now will keep widening, it will not close. So I think it is the onus lies on Pakistan which way they want to create the environment for a better relationship between the two nations.
I'll take that to Lieutenant General Talat Masood sir. Is the impression that seems to be gathering, and maybe it's early days yet, but the impression then seems to be that there is one policy for the Taliban and a different one for the LET. And now, I see my Pakistani friends having very frank and open conversations about the way the Pakistani state has pursued and coverted with some of these groups. So, is that something that is dangerous not just for India but for Pakistan as well? Today the LET may be the establishment's friend, tomorrow it will not be.
I fully agree with you. I think we have to treat all terrorists on the same plane. We cannot differentiate between them, and if we do, we will meet the same fate what happened day before yesterday. So I think we are fully conscious of that, and I'm really highly disappointed as far as giving bail to this person is concerned, because it only goes to show that how weak the state has become in terms of acting against the terrorists. So I think we completely share your sentiment as far as this incident is concerned. There is no doubt about it, and I think people in Pakistan are even probably more worried, and especially at a time when an incident like this happened in Pakistan itself 2 days back, such a horrendous incident in which poor students were the target. And then you have this guy being released on bail, which is absolutely absurd. And so I think we have as strong views as you have, because I think Pakistan needs to show that its people are not supporting terrorists. In fact, what has happened is that there have been certain policies in the past which obviously need to be changed. And that is exactly the thing that Pakistan needs today to strengthen itself from inside and to face the terrorists. And there cannot be any differentiation between any of these types, whether they are directed towards India or whether they are directed towards Afghanistan or towards the US or towards any other country.
I really do appreciate your words, to both you and Shehzad Chaudhry today. Really appreciate what both of you are saying today. Very frank and honest in your conversation with us tonight. Mr. Sorabji, let me ask you though, do you believe that, what do you think the Pakistani government can do? Our legal systems are actually very, very similar. So, what happens from here?
Correct.
The trials are slow in India as well, but should they set up a special court and expedite this case, as Shobha Dey was saying, as Ujjwal Nikam was saying, have a day-to-day hearing, get it out of the way? Wouldn't that send a strong signal, Mr. Sorabji?
First and foremost, an appeal should be preferred against the order granting bail. It's a judicial order, appalling, but maybe they go on the principle, we go bail, not jail, and there's not sufficient evidence. I don't know. I wouldn't like to attribute motives to the government. At the most, we can say it's an appalling judicial order which can be corrected by going into appeal and strenuously argue the appeal. But there's one thing more. We go on saying not sufficient evidence for this, that, rest of it. There is one section in the Pakistan Penal Code which is conveniently ignored, and like my Pakistan friends do tell us about it. This section is 153 capital A. We have a similar section in Indian Penal Code. What does the section say? Anyone who makes speeches which affects harmony or tends to incite ill feelings between two countries is now to be prosecuted and punished. Now, where is the question of lack of evidence as far as Syed Hafiz is concerned? He is regularly spitting venom against India. There's incontrovertible evidence. Why don't you prosecute him? Why is he given this hospital treatment? Is there any question of lack of evidence there?